Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. No matter where you are in the world or what chaos your inbox looks like today, we're happy to have you here with us. And welcome to Criticality Live, presented by Secure Nation, the show where we cut through the noise, challenge assumptions, and talk honestly about the state of cybersecurity. All right, enough from me. Let's get to the real reason why you're here. Our guest today is someone who's been shaping conversations in cybersecurity and pushing the industry forward in ways that really matter. So let's get into it. Our guest is Joshua R. Nicholson. He's a cybersecurity veteran with deep expertise in DFIR, security operations, security architecture, and risk management. Throughout his career, he has led high performing technical teams, guided organizations through major incidents, and helped executives make clearer, more confident security decisions. His background spans hands on technical work, advisory leadership, and building cybersecurity programs across organizations of all sizes. Today, Joshua is a fractional CISO and security risk advisor, partnering with companies that need seasoned, practical guidance without the overhead of a full-time security executive. He works with Dark Stack 7 Cyber Defense, focusing on incident response readiness, solution engineering, and the design of resilient, reality-tested security programs. Known for his people-first communication style and the ability to translate complex risk into actionable strategies, Joshua keeps the team focused on what matters most: clarity, resilience, and measurable security outcomes. Josh, welcome to the show.
Yeah, actually, before we jump into that, I just want to say, Josh, that we look like Christmas today.
We
Look
do.
at us. It's that time of the year, right? It's a holiday season. Everything's getting festive. We have, between the two of us, a gaggle of children and family and friends and things that are going on. And while we get Josh ramped up to join us, I wanted to ask if you had any plans that from a work perspective coming up over the next few weeks.
Big thing is just closing out a strong Q4, making sure that we get all our OKRs done, making sure that we give the folks appropriate time off because it is the holiday season, and we
Yes,
want to make
don't
sure that
burn
they have
out.
the opportunity to rest and recover.
Yeah, see, that's smart. See, I just did an ISO 42001 class last week, and then this week I started a CMMC level 1 class because there's nothing that says glutton for punishment like someone who takes 2 classes in the month of December with a family with relatively young kids, at this time of year. So that's my plans coming up. Yeah, don't know why I did that to myself, but I'm sure people out there can relate when you're a high functioning individual. I always like to be busy.
Yeah, I'm one of those folks. My wife will tell you that I will work until the day I die, and then probably resurrect myself and put in overtime because that's just kind of the personality type I have. So totally understand. And, for me, taking a break is, minutes, not days or weeks.
Yeah, that's something I need to get better at. And I always say this time of year, like I'm a believer in like a word of the year. So I always try to come up with the word of the year. And I think like 2026 has to be the year of rest. I think that needs to be what my word of the year is. It's been quite a 2025.
I'm with you on that. I think if I had to pick a word for 2026, it would be reconciliation. Um,
Oh,
Reconciling all the things that you have going on in your life, and having better connections with those people who are important with you, and the things that you really should be focusing on versus all the bright shiny object things that we have and could absolutely be a distraction from what's important. So reconciliation and refocus.
I like that. That's really nice. While we're waiting, does anyone have any questions for us in the chat? Technology is great and we all love it because it's our career, but when it doesn't work, it's always inconvenient. So, does anybody have any questions that we could answer? Any hot topics that
Well, I have a question. What was the most influential thing that you learned in your ISO 41001 course?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, if you know ISO and you know like the way that the standards work, it's relatively simple to walk through and to understand the controls. But what I learned from the instructor was that not many people even know where to begin. And I don't mean like small mom and pop places. I mean, large organizations are spending hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars on these AI strategies with no clear-cut goals and objectives, and are being asked to measure their ROI and don't know where to begin. And it concerns me because, I mean, we've heard the chatter, we've also read the white papers, and it's on LinkedIn all the time. But when it comes down to the practice, what concerns me about it is that all this investment is being put into something. People are losing their jobs because people think that AI is going to replace them. Companies think it's going to replace their people, without a clear, provable execution in place. And I think that disruption is going to be a problem come next year. Too many people are losing their jobs to AI, and they shouldn't be. It should be like side by side working with AI.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with AI is you always have to have a human in the loop, because if you don't, things will go horribly, horribly astray. And
Yeah.
I'm very fond of saying that AI will do really great emails for you. They will, give you really good templated policies, but they won't testify in court for you, and they won't go to jail for you. So, be careful with what you trust the AI, because you're ultimately responsible for the outcomes related to that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The court thing concerns me as well. As we all know, it's not a secret, the United States doesn't have a federal privacy law. So as people are using AI more in their work, and they're pumping it full of data, because sure, you can say don't put confidential data into these LLMs. It's happening. We all know what's happening. What's going to happen when there's a breach? Who is accountable then? What does that look like in a court of law? What laws may come from that, and what's that going to look like? Yes, but they will get you put in jail. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Ryan. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. It becomes a truly a kind of a chicken or egg scenario where, do I figure out what I want to do with AI first, or do I figure out how I'm going to govern AI first? And then if I figure out what I'm going to govern AI first, that might not match my actual use cases. So it's kind of
Right.
a circular thing where you always have to constantly be reevaluating what you have, what your guardrails are, and what your risk tolerance and risk appetite is regarding, anything new and shiny.
Yeah, for sure. Just like any of the buzzwords of the past few years, right? We had like zero trust a couple of years. I remember being at RSA and everything was zero trust and everything. Now it's AI. Um, and it has the AI responsibility and the ethics and the morals around its use, guardrails for sure, absolutely are going to come into play. In particular for the companies that say, "Oh, we're not using AI." Yes, AI. Yes, Gen AI is being used in your organization. I'm sorry to break it to you, but then finding it and then um, protecting it. You know, that shadow AI. That's like one of my new favorite terms that I've used over the past few months. Is like finding it and then protecting it, um, because there's a lot at stake legally. I mean, outside the U.S., like the EU AI Act, GDPR.
Mm-hmm.
A fun one I'm working with right now is the Swiss FADP, which is their privacy law too. There's a lot around AI bias and being used in decision making. I think New York actually has a law where if someone is using an HRIS system that has AI helping to make hiring decisions, and it is, what does that look like from a controls perspective? How are you ensuring there isn't a bias drift? How are you making sure that the decisions are still aligned to your objectives and expectations? It's going to be a really interesting, year, 18 months until some of this. I think there'll be a lawsuit. I can just feel it. It always comes out of Europe, doesn't it? Because of the privacy laws. So there will be a lawsuit of some kind that will change things on a global scale.
Yeah. The big thing with AI is a lot of times we don't know how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Yes.
We put something in and we get a product out. And a lot of times what happens in between is completely black box to us.
Yep.
And for some things, that's perfectly okay. I don't need to know how the decision was made or how you source that material. but other things it absolutely matters, particularly if you're
Yeah.
dealing with things like financials, if you're dealing with things like HIPAA, any type of privacy act.
Yeah.
You brought up the EU AI Act, and that has some very, very
Mm.
real things on monitoring folks and using context for emotional state that
Yes.
are strictly forbidden for use in any EU context. So really it comes down to there's lots of laws that you might not even know that you're breaking because you're using this thing that has that black box in the middle of I put thing in, I get thing out, and now we don't know what's going to happen to us legally because we don't know how that decision was really made.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things where we all have to keep our eyes on it, and maybe that's a special episode that we can do with someone coming up. But I do think that we have um our guest today. I think we do have Josh, who we are going to be able to bring us in. Oh, hello, Josh. Can you hear us?
I can. Hey, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm sorry, I was having some connectivity issues. So, hey, Josh, it's good to see you again, Mr. Copeland.
Yeah. Good to see you again, Josh.
All right. We were just saying we all work in technology and we love it for our careers, but just sometimes it just is so inconvenient. So
Yeah, I have the feeling that I'm going to be on a life support system one day, and then someone's going to run in to try and patch it because it's not working, and I'm attempting to breathe, right? So it's some 18-year-olds trying to patch something that I'm trying to breathe off of. I see that eventually happening. So,
yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. Let's dive right in with your backstory here a bit. Because nobody wakes up, definitely myself included, and says, "Gee, I want to be a cybersecurity leader someday." Um, there's always a journey, a leap, a risk that's taking in at like a turning point that sets everything in motion. So let's kind of go back in the way back machine here a bit. You started your career journey in the U.S. Marines and then moved into cybersecurity. So what was it about that background that drew you towards cyber and risk? And how did your experiences in the Marines shape your early thinking about security and operations?
yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, being in the Marine Corps, there's a military mindset. There's an offense, there's a defense, there's a bad guy. It made it really easy to understand in cybersecurity. There's a bad guy, there's an offense, there's a defense, and you got to secure things. And sometimes there's an offensive nature to it. So it was easy to understand that. And then I just have a huge anti-bully streak. I can't stand bullies. And to me, these cyber criminals that
Yeah.
are stealing money, I just got off of a phone call with a client, and that's why one of the part of the reasons I was late, that they received like $114,000 ACH fraud. It's going to ruin the business. And so you can see where there are real companies, there are real impacts, there are people losing jobs because cyber criminals are stealing money. And you think they're just stealing it from the Visas of the world and the Wells Fargos. No, it's mom and pop crane companies that get hit or some other thing. So there's a personal nature to that anti-bully. And then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I really went into IT. And so I was an IT sysadmin. I was building servers and routers and switches, and it was really IT focused. And then 2003 was when the bank I was working for was getting hit with cyber attacks. We're having malicious, fraudulent ACH and wires.
Yep.
And so it got a lot more prevalent, especially when online banking started coming out. And I still remember today, the CIO of a bank I was working for was saying, well, we're not going to do online banking. Nobody is ever going to want to bank online. They're going to want to go and walk into a branch. And so Whitney Bank built a bunch of branches out, and the exact opposite happened. And so you could see where there's just was a lack of vision in that area for a long time. And then the banks take cybersecurity much more seriously than other industries. Like if you go to higher education, it was like, no, free and open Wi-Fi everywhere, where the banks were very restrictive on access. And it's just a different mentality. So you really got to do cyber at an intense level versus a company where it's not that important. Your job is to reset passwords and so forth. In 2003, I decided I'm going to go full time. I love this cybersecurity stuff. And I went to SANS. It was my first SANS course. The bank sent me to SANS. I had Stephen Northcutt was the president, and I think he's retired now. but he was teaching the classes himself. And so the first thing, it was my boss who had looked up cybersecurity training because there was none at the time. And I just really fell in love with it. I did the hacker course, the 504 course. I did a certified incident handler, the GC WAN as well for the Windows security. So I got like 4 or 5 certs. The best one I liked was the SANS G-Web, which was a web application hacking. That was a real insightful course. But I just really passionately fell in love with it. And I think that's really what you got to be to really be into cyber and like this. It's not a part-time job. I don't sit on the porch without a book that has cybersecurity. I read other things, obviously, as well. But there's a continuous education that you have to do. You don't know what is going on. I do incidents a lot. So get called into a customer environment. They have Azure, they have AWS, and they have GCP. And so you got to figure out what happened across all 3 of these. When you're doing incident response, you almost have to be a jack of all trades, whether it's a database or it's a router or it's a switch, it's this and that. And so that made it exciting for me. And I was passionate about it. So I kept reading, and I viewed certifications just as a path for education. Wasn't for, hey, I can't wait to get my MCSE so I can make 20,000 more a year. It was really focused on, hey, I would love to learn that thing. I think it would really help my career. So let me double down to it. So, but yeah, that's what really got me focused on it when SANS started coming around and having actual formalized cybersecurity training. And then I happened to work for a consulting company called Digital Consulting and Software Services. And before I know it, I was doing pen tests. I did my first thing in cyber was a pen test. I went through the official training, but it was a telecommunications company. So I was scared that I wasn't going to find anything. And here I am. I just went through all this fancy training. They paid all this money and I'm going to go, hey, you look pretty good. So there was this fear of my first pen test. Then I ran into another problem towards the end of it, is that how many ways do you stop before documenting? I mean, that was new to me. I found 3 ways in. Should we just keep going? And there had to be some time period in order to be able to stop that in a penetration test. So from that, I just kind of fell in love with it. I wanted to be around other smarter people and people that understand the industry, can learn from. So yeah, that kind of rounds up how I got into it. And then it really went into like a sales and how do I connect with customers and how do I get solutions to some of their cybersecurity needs. So I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's journey is so different. It always fascinates me to hear about it. Because like I was going to be an accountant. Like my dream coming out of high school, I kid you not, was I'm going to be a CPA and I'm going to be a CFO someday. There was something wrong with me. I know. Yeah. I own it. I totally own it. So it's really cool that, you have this varied experience and that's been able to get you through. Cause I'm the same way. I'm continuously learning. I think it's so important for the role.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, Josh knows about that. Josh is in academia and from that world, right?
Yep. Constantly learning, constantly doing things. So kind of looking back, what was one defining challenge in your early career that really forced you to grow either technically or as a leader, that kind of was that point in time that made you go, oh, okay, this is something I need to really work on?
Yeah, I had 2 kind of epochs of my life, different epochs here. But the first one really was I just got out of the Marine Corps. I was a network administrator, and I had sent an email about what we should do on these servers and so forth. I wrote it real quick. Bad grammar, misspelling. Went to my boss. My boss comes back, goes, you know what, you really need to take a writing course or something, because I mean, all this is improper English and not cited properly. And it was such an embarrassing thing to occur. And I was probably, I don't know, 25, 26 at the time. So it was such an embarrassing thing. I said, I refuse for that to ever happen again. So I did 10 years of night school at Tulane University. So that was hard in itself, just doing 10 years of night school. And then I took remedial business writing courses. I mean, I took things that didn't even count for credit because I was not going to be embarrassed like that again. And so I think that's what motivates people, is they get embarrassed about something or something really bad happens and go, you know what, that ain't happening ever again. And so that was one time that really focused me in. And then I think the second time was when I was running the security operations center for Bristol Myers Squibb. And this was as a Booz Allen Hamilton consultant. And this was during the pandemic. And I was in charge of running this whole security operations center. One of the problems that we're getting is that during this pandemic, we're getting hit with ransomware attacks on different areas. I mean, manufacturing, different places are getting hit by ransomware attacks. And it was debilitating in the fact that we couldn't get precursor medicine out. I mean, people weren't going to get diabetes medicine because the precursor chemicals come from different manufacturing sites. It can't move it because the site's down. You can't process the precursor because the site's down. So you can't even make pills. So you have medicine not going out. And that's when it's the first time where cyber was really had a real world life. Somebody's impacted because of it. So it was a real harrowing time. We didn't get much sleep. We were up till 2, 3 in the morning a lot of times. So I think those are always adapted, kind of changed my philosophy, as well as when I was at Ernst & Young. I thought that was a great professional learning experience. I mean, a polishing school. When you work for Big Four consulting, they send you through all kind of training on how to pull out a customer's pain points, how to identify objectives, how to do dispute resolution, how to do all this stuff that they're known for doing really well. Well, they have training and they have teaching courses and so forth. And I didn't know what I didn't know when it came to how to present to upper management and to boards. And I thought that was a tremendous experience. I mean, I was only with Ernst & Young for 2 years, but it was one of the most enriching experiences because of that. And then I got thrown in real world big cybersecurity initiatives. And so I think those are the different time periods where I think my career from E&Y went into executive management, because a lot of times when they interview people, when they see you have a Big Four background, they figure you've been through all that training. And so you know how to do all this stuff. And that's what they're focused on. So I thought that was a great milestone and transformation in my career. It went from being a technologist and an engineer to actually an executive. And how do you manage consulting engagements? I don't know.
Yeah, that's like what's going to be my next question. Like, when did you realize that you could combine that technical depth with that business strategy? But I mean, I think you've kind of covered that really nicely. So I would, I guess, follow that up with saying, how did you know? Like, when did you have the confidence? Like, what was it? Like, there's so many people that I know, myself included, that are out on their own, doing their own consulting, but are still really hesitant. What was your aha moment? Was it a client? Was it a presentation that you gave that really
to go out on my own?
Yeah.
Well, one of the main decisions at that is that I had been on 2 senior management teams. So I was with a company called Cofense, that used to be called FishMe, had international teams around the world. So I've done that. I've been on 2 senior management teams, and I've learned just some make just huge mistakes and huge problems, or made terrible decisions. And it's like, if we're going to have some bad mistakes and terrible decisions, I'd rather make it myself. I'm so tired of someone else making these bad decisions, and then my stock's not worth anything because, man, I said not, we shouldn't have done that. And so it's almost like at my age, wanting to be in charge of your own destiny. You have a big network of people I've worked with for the last 24 years. I've had to do selling and business development and so forth. So you just turn and go, you know what? I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to be an independent. I'm going to drive sales and engagements myself, use third parties to deliver. And it really had to do with just the freedom of being able to navigate your own future and work out deals where, when you're with the bigger companies, you're just trying to fulfill whatever their mission is, whatever that role they put you in. And you're trying to be the best in that role. And it may take you 2 years to show that. We're here independently. I could sign a contract with a new company tomorrow. I could do a pen test here. I can chart my own destiny. So I think that's where the focus. And then there was just so many layoffs in the industry and consolidation, and people were being laid off. And so go and do that search for jobs has taken 6-9 months. So it doesn't seem logical at my level to just be another rat in the race applying for jobs and so forth, right? And so I found that this was a very fulfilling from that perspective. I can work with clients directly. I can do advertising that I want to. When I was at Booz Allen Hamilton, I started my podcast, Cybersecurity America. And I wanted to get clearance to do it because they're very tight because of the national security stuff. They do a lot of stuff. 98% of what Booz did was like CIA, NSA, classified systems. So they're afraid of me saying something and it going out on a podcast. So they wanted to interview every person, or not interview, but clear every person who's going to be a guest on my show. and have to get approved through legal. What a cumbersome pain in the butt that is, right? Well, I have no restrictions like that as an independent contractor. I could do these virtual CISO services, the security consulting that I do, the incident response that I do. I could do all that myself. And so that was the freedom of it that made it so exciting. And yeah, that's why I wanted to turn. I wanted to be able to take this chance and this risk now and still have several years. If it doesn't work out, I can recover, so.
Yeah, contingency planning, right? That's what we do.
Yeah.
So if you were mentoring your younger self, then when you were like entering the field, what advice would you give him? Especially given how much the cybersecurity landscape has changed. Like, would you do anything to train courses differently or go to different companies? Like, is there anything like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so specialized now. It wasn't specialized when I first got in. When I first got in, you were an IT guy and you did some firewall stuff and you reset accounts. And then we started getting you more security and so forth. So you were just a jack of all trades. You were the network security guy, the same as network guy. Now it's so specialized. You have incident responders, you got forensics guys, you got cloud guys, you have identity access management guys that do nothing but identity access management. You have all these specializations from F5 load balancers, this group that just does that infrastructure. You can hone your career towards that. In many ways, I think it's good to start off with that general education. I mean, it wasn't possible when I first got in. You had to be an IT person before going to cyber. Now you could go straight into cyber and you have no idea what a domain controller is, what a DHCP server or DNS. You don't understand all that. Yep. So when it comes to being in incidents and having to tell these companies, yes, you need to shut this down, do this, do that, they lack the ability to do that. So you really, the incident commander role where is what I fill in most of the time. You're a former IT guy, you understand systems and everything. You've been years of doing incident response. You can now have the expertise to tell companies to make multi-million-dollar decisions, like shut that down, do this, disconnect that. That could have massive ramifications. And if you don't understand IT, how do you really put security around it? So I think coming up is completely different than it used to. But look at what you have. My home network, I do like a Dell 750. I run Proxmox, and I have a bunch of virtual machines. I have 2-3 Kali Linux purple machines, and I have like an exploitable 3 virtual machine. And so you can do a lot of stuff in labs, and you can run a lot of different things. That wasn't really possible when I was coming up. You did have VM workstation. You can run something off a desktop, but it always crashed. You didn't run constantly. Just the ability to afford some old hardware like that and run virtual machines and do Bloodhound on an Active Directory domain controller in your lab. The ability to do stuff and the training that's there it's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But in many ways, my nephew's going in cybersecurity right now. And I always said the network plus and the security plus. Just start off with the basics. I know you want to jump into cyber and go chasing bad guys around the network. But if you don't know networking and you don't know, like when I interview a cybersecurity person, first question I ask them is explain to me how email works. I mean, like ports and protocols. Your desktop goes to send an email. What does it do? It does a DNS query. It looks for the SOA record, looks for the domain here, and step by step of how your computer uses DNS, queries those records. How do those records find the SOA? How do you get to the mail handler? That whole process. If you can't explain to me how email works, you're not going to be a very good cybersecurity person. So I think that those are always challenges because you need to know how this operates. So I would say the network plus and the security plus are definitely golden. But what I've been doing as well is that I get the LinkedIn Premium account, and there's tons of training in the LinkedIn Premium, and it's phenomenal. What it does, a lot of the content, like I've been doing a lot of Azure AI work lately. So I've been taking their courses through there. And you can get it where it gives you a certificate and updates your skills on your LinkedIn profile. So for instance, I did like a Azure AI machine learning thing course. And so it gives me a certificate and also updates my skills to show that I do have a skill in machine learning and AI now because of that course. And so it's really easy to up your profile. I know gamers have another word for it, where you make your gaming profile look like you have all kind of awards, you're powerful, whatever it is, right? So it's sort of the same thing. I could take a lot of these short courses off LinkedIn. I can get my skills up. My knowledge is first. I want to get my knowledge up, but also get the certifications where you actually have to take tests and know the material. And now I put it directly on what everybody's looking at. All the recruiters are looking at LinkedIn. So I think the LinkedIn Premium is a really good offer.
Yeah, that's really interesting because we hear a lot about building your own brand in security and having that brand and using LinkedIn Premium to get those courses done and have it automatically update your profile. I think is a huge way to brand yourself and get that out there for those, to your point, for those recruiters. I think it's really important, especially now where so many people are being laid off and the market is what it is. Making sure that you're current is that's great advice. I really like that. I didn't even think about that. Very cool.
Yeah, so, and because there's a lot of jobs that morphed, like AI engineer and pen tester and all this stuff. Well, they would say 10 years of experience. Well, that doesn't exist. That technology didn't exist 10 years ago. So you can see there's a disconnect if people want to hire AI security people, but they have no clue even to start. So I think the training for LinkedIn is good.
So we've kind of covered how you got here. So let's transition and figure out, how do you lead? Because cybersecurity leadership just isn't a title. It's actually a bit of a pressure cooker. You're managing people, you're managing technology, you're managing threats, you're managing expectations, and you're managing a P&L, and you have a budget all at once. So let's kind of dig in on how you navigate it. So given your background of bridging technical teams and C-suite advisory, how do you translate those highly technical risk into business risk in a way that the executives and boards understand and resonate with and actually give you the things you need to do the job that they hire you to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I use analogies and risk taxonomy. So the great thing at Wells Fargo is that I reported under GRC leader. And so I had about 28 people under me, and I did cybersecurity risk assessments for consumer lending division. And that was a phenomenal experience because I got to learn true financial risk management and the terms that they use and the way they look at things and so forth. And so I would use those concepts and analogies to explain the cybersecurity side. So part of it was just a huge understanding now of risk and be able to quantify the risk and for decision makers when it comes to going to get your budget. It's no longer, it used to be we would write a budget request and it was more like fear, and we would throw a bunch of news articles and we're going to say, look at this company, they got hacked and we don't want the same thing to happen. But it was more of this fear tactic, and management learned that wasn't effective anymore. You can spend infinite amount of money on cyber and still get kind of screwed over. So I think what they realize is that the taxonomy is important and the analogies. It's just like this other thing in nature or in society. That's how I've always been trying to explain some of these different frauds,
Yeah, for me, I found that storytelling is kind of that key special sauce that makes it really easy to connect with your board, because you have to be able to talk to them in a language they understand. They're not going to understand the bits and bytes and CVEs and KEVs. They're really going to want, here's the story. Here's what's happening. Here's how it could affect you. Here's how it affected one of our near peers, and kind of roll from that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, talking about, like, first of all, I love the fact that you reported, I'm GRC all the way. So like risk taxonomy, I was like, my little heart fluttered when you said that. I love it. I think that's fantastic. And also something I did not know about you. But thinking about how you go and you speak with your boards or your executive, corporate leadership. So from the Marines, with your discipline and the way that you really grew up in that Marine background, all the way to corporate cyber leadership, like, is there a trait that's transferred over, or anything that you needed to relearn as you came out of the military and then progress up into a cyber leadership role?
Yeah, absolutely. You had to unlearn a lot of things. The Marine Corps appreciates honesty. I mean, it's highly rewarded. You're blunt, but you're honest, and you move things forward. Civilian world is not the same, and you run into huge problems when you jump into the service. Well, I'll tell you, I first worked at Northrop Grumman there in New Orleans and ship systems, and I was a land admin. First got out of the Marine Corps. I was a sergeant, so I led people. So they said, hey, we're going to make you manage these 5 desktop technicians. And so this one guy would come in every morning and he looked terrible. It was like cigarette stains on his shirt and just like horrible. And I said, well, we're going to have a uniform inspection every morning. Just come by my desk. I want to make sure the uniform is salvageable, serviceable, and look terrible when you're going out there on the floors. And I got called by HR. They said I couldn't do that. It was against policy for me to have clothing inspections in the morning. And I was like, I don't understand that. You say that they must wear this Avondale Industries shirt, right? Yeah. Well, where does it say if it's all torn up and cigarette stains and coffee stains that it's not serviceable and that they need to put something on? So it was really interesting. In the military, it would have been easy accountability. You didn't even have to be in the guy's unit. You're like, you look terrible. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Not in the civilian world. It's not the same. There's also, what I notice is that they have a tendency to think you're arrogant when you come out of the military. And it's because of a high level of confidence. It's just, you're used to giving a task that you can't just go, well, I don't know how to do that, and just sit there. I mean, your job is to take that and grab it and run with it. And civilians in many ways are not used to that. They're not used to an aggressive can-do attitude. So it just goes, well, you think you could do something you've never done before? How arrogant. Well, wait a minute. Why can't we do that? Let's move forward. So there is more of a passivity in the civilian world, wait to be told, where in the military is you're not wait to be told. You do what you know needs to be done. And so there's a difference between those two. But I also noticed there's a difference just in learning. When it came to my MCSE, some of the guys were doing the certifications there for like a year. And it was only like 5 tests back then. And this was a MCSE MT40 days. This was before I even taken the 2000. And I got mine done in 3 months. And what I found is that they didn't have the same level of rigor when it came to studying for things. They just like, I'll get to it when it comes around. I'll keep studying for my Network Plus. Maybe I'll take it next month. And it was always pushed it was always pushed. And what I found in the military is I just set it. I paid that money. If I was going to get the CCNP, which I got the Cisco CCNA and then the CCNP, if I was going to get that, I am going to pay and schedule it 2 months, 3 months, whatever ahead of time. I'm going to pay the money. It's going to be hundreds of dollars out. And if I don't study for that, I lose it. I lose that money. That was a huge motivational factor for me to put that date on the calendar, pay for the certification. It made me stay up late. It made me make sure I was prepared because I didn't want to lose the money. The same way college did. College always had exams. I couldn't get out of it. It was in the syllabus from day one. So we always knew that thing was coming up and you prepare for it. So I use that methodology in certifications. I have my nephew taking the Network Plus. I had him go in and book it 5 weeks out. And it was motivation. It's a huge motivation factor because you put it on the line for it. I think people need that, especially if you know that money's going to hurt if you had to pay it a second time. So I'm going to hustle and I'm going to make sure I get there. So that was part of my motivation to get through some of this training.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Being ex-military myself as well, I think the time management aspect that you're given and handed when you are a member of a military unit. The concept: if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. You're going to find something to do to fill that time, and that has been, a huge strong point for folks that when I've hired them out of the military is they are those go-getters that go pick things. So kind of,
it's called a bias towards action, right? I mean,
yeah.
In the military, they give you a bias towards action. You're not to sit there. You're to interact with whatever that problem is, that issue, exert yourself. And in the civilian world, it's not as popular. That bias towards action.
So you've talked a little bit about, what you think makes good leaders. So how do you distinguish someone from being a good technical manager from a strong cybersecurity leader?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's definitely these leadership principles that you see almost 2 tracks, almost like the military, where you got the enlisted and the officer track. It's the same way in the civilian world. You got the technical track and the managerial track. And there's always been this assumption that everybody wants to be a manager. Everybody wants to be a leader. And that's not a fact. There's a lot of people who want to stay technical. They want to be a senior technical person. They don't need to do management and budgets and spreadsheets and so forth. So you do need both career tracks to run simultaneously, not just assuming a technical person would jump into the leadership and the management. But I also think it's important taking a technical person and throwing them into a leadership role and saying, hey, you're in charge of this project. I need you to meet with these teams. That means you need to understand project management. You're going to understand IT architecture and policy and procedures. You got to be able to talk with the PMs. You're going to be responsible for doing that. When those situations, you know that you're on the hook and you have to kind of learn those skills. And I do think from a perspective of training, it shouldn't always be technical. You should definitely look at the soft skills, because I'd be honest, my technical skills are not why my career got to where it is. It's mostly the soft skills that are coupled with that. The soft skills are what gets contracts signed, gets problems resolved, and so forth. What I notice about security incidents, when someone gets hacked in, and my team and I are in there, it's the most stressful time period that those people are in. They just lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. They don't know if they're responsible for it, somebody else. Everyone's screaming. I had it where this private equity company, for instance, called me, and I was actually on vacation, just started day one of my vacation. I got to call back into work. But they had ransomware, and it was all over all their computers, and they only had about 35 employees, and it was spitting out ransomware letters out on the printer. All the printers, there was like 15 in the office, and they kept eating up all their paper printing the ransom note. So we get on the phone with the bridge, and I have the technical engineers and I have the C-suite. I got the CIO, I got the CEO, I got the CFO, I got all these guys. And they're all panicked. They're all freaked out. And nobody knows what to do. So in these situations, you actually have to call them and go, okay, C-suite, you need to start grabbing your disaster recovery policy, start calling your third-party vendors, pulling your insurance policies. IT guys, you need to start doing this and you need to start doing that. And just take charge of the situation, because that's what the client wants. They don't want your somewhat advice. Everything is down and hard. They want you taking charge, determining what needs to happen. Well, some of that has to do with communication skill. You're telling people what to do. Dispute resolution is always important. You have customers that are upset at the time. You have to be able to manage that and to be able to deliver properly. And then sometimes that person's attitude impacts the security decision you make. And you got to make sure that, hey, this person is not emotionally getting in my way and so forth. So, yeah.
Yeah. So when you find yourself in going through these situations across different companies, different industries, how do you maintain consistency in security culture and standards? Because you very clearly have to adapt to every different organization. Like you said, like a financial services company is going to be extremely different and maybe regimented and have the policies and procedures on lock versus maybe a SaaS company that's just spun up 2 years young and doesn't really have that yet. So how do you ensure there's a consistency there?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, when you're changing from one job to another, you're getting thrown in a completely different situation. I think when you go to a company that you want to be able to exert yourself where you find things that you can change and then things you just accept as truth. I mean, the wire department is not going to do something different just because you don't like the way they send the message, right? So I think staying in your lane at first to develop what your lane is and what the area of improvement you are, but then highlight the outside ones. Yeah, definitely a way of doing that. But I think it's you control what you can control. You highlight some of the problems that have major impacts and make sure you brought that up to your team. But some of it you just accept. I mean, okay, they accepted that risk. It's happening. You should be able to just have some level of contentment that you've done your job, you brought the risk up, and management has it in their hand. That's all you can expect. You can't expect them to do anything else. So I think there is this sense of accomplishment that, hey, I did what I was supposed to. I advised my customer. I did my cybersecurity services for them. They decided to go in another way. That's a rare priority. They can do that. And so there's got to be some detachment. Just because they didn't pick your idea, you shouldn't get upset about it and take it personally. Just be, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, I heard pick your battles, and I think that's really a good life lesson as well.
Yeah, it's pick your battles. Even with the technology, when you're dealing with what to implement. Like I was implementing multi-factor authentication and all for wire transfer systems, but at first you were blocking everybody. Nobody was getting anything through. So you can't impact the business with the security because you're going to lose all support, especially in the beginning. So when you go to roll something out like that bank wide, just have to be very careful, and you have to work with the right people, because if it gets implemented and it has a poor impact to performance or to authentication, or customers can't get in, they're going to have you rip it out and you ain't going to get it back in again, or some different version of it that's watered down is going to get put in, because the bank's philosophy in many ways is risk reduction for them, not anything else.
Not user experience.
Yeah.
It's secondary to protection, and most of the banks protect themselves. So your bank accounts, for instance, consumer accounts are protected, but commercial accounts are not. So if you were a law firm or accountant firm and someone stole your credentials and wired money out of the bank, you're on your own. I hope you have an insurance policy that covers that. Unless you can prove the bank had faulty authentication processes, you're going to hold the bag for that entire fraud. So most of the people who have those commercial accounts don't realize that. They don't have the insurance policy that protects them in the event that there is fraud. And they haven't done a full security assessment of their desktops when it comes to interacting, because the bank is going to say your username and password and your MFA token, those two together authorizes that transaction. You're responsible for any fraud that might have occurred.
Oh, that's like a PSA.
Sounds like it, right?
Yeah. All right. So we've heard about your origin story. We've talked a little bit about leadership. Let's kind of take a step back, roll up our sleeves, and get technical. Talk where the rubber meets the road. Cybersecurity obviously isn't just a strategy. It's the tools, the tactics, the real world problem solving that keeps the system safe. So let's dive into your brain a little bit. So you've led SOCs, you've led incident response, threat hunting, security architecture. You advise on GRC, road mapping strategy. How important is it for a security leader to maintain hands-on keyboard level technical chops? And when is it time for them to step back and just lead?
It's a good question. And it's a real personalized question as well. I decided to keep my technical skills sharp because I enjoyed it so much. And I was always afraid that if I had to change and go back to hands-on keyboard, that I'd be so far behind that I wouldn't be effective. So I thought it was important to keep hands-on keyboard. The people who don't want to have that skill set anymore and have that kind of flexibility will lend themselves towards the management, and they'll let their technical skills atrophy. And so I think it really is a decision that you got to make in your career, which route you're kind of going. I always think maintain your technical skills. Those are the things that will bring you through. People don't always need management or leadership, but hard skills are always needed. And so I think it all kind of depends on what your career aspirations are. Does that make sense, Josh?
Yeah, it makes sense. But then it leads to the second part is, if you are a leader and you still have these hand-on keyboard skills, when do you step back and force other folks to do that technical stuff versus you getting in and, rolling up your sleeves and doing it yourself? I know that's something that I had problems with for a while. Of I didn't want to let go of the keyboard and give it to somebody else.
Yeah, no, that's always a good person. That is, it's always trying to balance the difference between the two. You got to ask yourself in your role, is your job to produce leaders and to drive a function, or is it just to do everything yourself? So there's a lot of these people that want to just, I think I could do it better if I just do it myself, but they don't ever grow their team. They don't assign someone else. They don't hold them accountable. So in many ways, that's very detrimental. However, there's situations where it needs to be done by yourself. It has to be that person, and so forth. But I just think the hands-on keyboard aspect of it is kind of where you want to keep your career at. And I just think it's important to continue to maintain it. But where you want to be at, and where are you at in your career in the first place? Like if you're at me, like 24, 25 years of experience, you're thinking management roles, you're thinking, that's where I want to be. I want to be lead organizations because of the knowledge you have over the years. But if you don't like leading people and you don't like being in charge of people and that kind of stuff, then honing on and staying in your technical skills. So I think there's a skill inventory you have to do to figure out whether you keep up your tech skills or not. And it does not hurt to continue to keep up. Like my CISSP, my CISM, I don't keep up with them. I mean, I got the CISSP twice, but I decided not to renew it. I'm not paying for it, not get the CPEs. At my level, they interview me. Nobody says, hey, we're not giving you a job because your certification's lapsed. So just the fact that you have one. So I think if you're going to be in an industry that requires kind of that continuous education, it's best to keep those those credentials up to speed,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of in that weird spot right now as well. Like, do I keep my old stuff or do I go for, I mean, I'm definitely going for new stuff. Before you joined, I mentioned I'm doing a CMMC class right now. Right. So definitely keeping myself busy, but do I keep the old things is a conversation I have with myself at least once a month.
CMMC is an interesting one. Like I'm getting certified in that as well because it's hard to be qualified. First of all, you have to have a bachelor's degree in computer science or cybersecurity, 5+ years of experience hands-on, as well as 1 or 2 other professional certifications, and pass a background check. So you can now go do these government assessments. And so there's such a need for that work right now. And not enough people that are certified. I think it was due October 1st was CMMC regulations that you were supposed to have that. So that is exploding right now. And the great thing about CMMC, it's pretty comprehensive, the program. When you look at the way it's kind of structured, it would be nice to do CMMC at a regular company, right? Just the way they do it. It matched what Wells Fargo had security plans. So we had this system called Spark, and each asset would have a plan. So the server would have a plan, the application would have a plan, the infrastructure, the data center, so forth. And it'd have all these layers of plans that you'd have to go through. And it was risk management kind of on top of it. Well, CMMC, I think, is definitely something you want to investigate, get some certifications. It's not cheap, though. You're talking about like $3,500 to get the CCP. And it's not like you could just book it, because I was like, you know what? I've been doing this for a long time. I can just esoteric new framework. Let me just get the book. There is no booking it. You actually have to be certified, or was it ABAB or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you have to actually take the test and go through all that. So you can't just book it. So,
yeah.
But I'm hearing a lot of people are doing these assessments now without the certification. Like, companies are not requiring
for like level 1s, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and that's
like the assessor rule was what you have the CCP, which is the first
level
one, professional, and then it was the assessor where you had to have the background and so forth. And trying to get the assessor one, but I can't wait till I get the $3,500 designated for that.
Well, from your broad experience working globally, what patterns do you see in cyber risk management that kind of cut across industries and regions? And are there these like universal truths organizations tend to overlook that could maybe make their lives easier if they didn't?
Yeah, one of the biggest cyber risks that they all overlook is third-party risk management, about how everything is connected to everything. And like in the banking world, the ACH and wire system, they didn't develop it themselves. That's a third-party ASP. And they got wire and APIs and file transfer systems that move data back and forth. But 80% of what a bank has is not on theirs. They didn't write it. They didn't do anything with it. It's some other third party. And so third-party risk management has been a huge problem, because now the supply chain got so much more complicated. And with cloud and microservices and so forth, they even got even worse of trying to figure out where that's at. All the companies' third-party risk management programs are all expanding because the third-party technology footprint's expanding. Now you throw AI in there and say, now you got to evaluate whether AI was used to make the decisions as part of that service or not, and did you have the right protection mechanisms on that AI system that you're using? So I think the world of third-party risk management is really where the problems occur.
Yeah, I definitly second that. I'm in the world of FedRAMP right now for a client, and just thinking about the supply chain risk management controls while you were saying that. And in Appendix P, that's been my my life the past couple of days.
Yeah. And we used to handle it with like hygiene things, like security scorecard. And we would say, okay, security scorecard, what do you know about this vendor? And so forth. So I think the future is going to be risk management programs dealt with technology platforms that do some stuff like that. Like I would go look up that company and look at what their risk rating, their hygiene is, how's their DNS, all that kind of stuff. And then that's something actionable. They can actually work on that and reduce that. So I always thought those third-party management tools were always a great investment, especially when you have a big footprint.
So, given some of the public discussion around AI, risk management, and cybersecurity as a whole, how do you see AI impacting security operations and enterprise cyber posture over the next, 2 to 5 years or so?
Yeah, it's making great changes in that area. So, posture management systems, what is it, CPSM or whatever the acronym is, these posture management systems, where they're doing an evaluation of the controls that you have in Azure and how things are configured and so forth, using AI to find those versus taking a spreadsheet and downloading it and me comparing it to another column in a spreadsheet. That's just all manual crap. And then having it where it could do a lot of this rudimentary analysis. Seamlessly, I think it's going to be huge. I think from an alerting perspective, from the EDR platforms and the SIEMs and all, you have all these alerts, and there was this panacea that somehow AI would just respond to all this and this whole problem will go away. And it does, it improves it, and absolutely you see like GPT-based things for writing reports and security tools. You see that a lot now. So you can see how it's kind of the open AI for some writing standards to reduce how long it takes to write an incident report, for instance. Instead of 70% of my billable time going to write a report, it's really less. It's less time because it can write the report itself. It just needs some of the information, ask some of the questions. So I see that happening. I see having GRC agentic AI agents where in twofold, you can see from a security incident, I would love to know what that IP address is. It's a server, it's a Windows server, but what part of what application, what does that fit into? What's the risk of it? Is it part of some critical function? I don't know. It's just an infrastructure device. We don't know the whole picture of that system and how it relates to everything when you get called into an incident. So I can see where there's an agent that I can ask these questions. Hey, I have an incident right now on system such and such. Please tell me what does that impact? And now I have the ability to ask it in natural language. What's my asset inventory? Do I own this thing? Who's responsible for it? So now I have asset management collaboration, but I also have the ability to use natural processing language and AI to say, have I got any alerts from this system in this time period on multiple things? So you can see where we would ask these business questions and security questions, and we would have to run multiple tools and do a lot of stuff to come up with the answer. Where now I think the answer could be much more streamlined, right? Much more responsive. But then logging becomes huge, which logging is usually a bad problem. Most companies are not logging properly. So now your AI, every time it makes decisions and you have that chain of thought, they have the COT or the chain of thought. How did it get to that answer? You're going to have that audited. I mean, especially if you're doing loans. Let's say you're a bank and you're doing loans based on what that AI agent decided. You don't think there'd be a lawsuit? Somehow you got your loan denied because that agent processed something wrong. So now it really gets critical, right? Of how did it make its decision? Why did it make the decision? Is it traceable? And do I have a log of it? Then a business person can say, hey, that model made that decision because of this. And maybe the logic wasn't right for that. Let me adjust that. But without the logging, you really don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this just went by like so quickly. Before we let you go, are there any final thoughts that you want to leave our audience with on cybersecurity leadership, building security resilience, anything?
Yeah, I would tell you the latest thing I just presented to ISACA conference here in Charlotte yesterday, and it was on LLM hacking, like vulnerability management, right, on LLMs. Fascinating topic, and got to really delve into a lot of things. So they have the OWASP, if you ever heard of OWASP. It's Open Web Application Security Project. So it's this open source where they come up with this standard on how to do web application pen testing. So it's been around for a while. Use it as a standard when you pen test a web application and so forth. Well, they came up with hacking LLM model top 10, very similar to it, because if you're familiar with application pen testing, it is almost the exact same as for LLM. I mean, you have a web front end, you get input, you get output. It is almost the exact. So if you understand web application hacking, you can understand LLM. It's just a little bit more complicated. It has a little bit more dimensions. But I'll give you an example. Out of the top 10, it's sanitizing input and output as part of prompt injection. So your ability to put something malicious into a prompt, it make it back to the LLM, store it as a response, come back in a RAG function or something. Now I've poisoned the model using that prompt injection. Well, it's the same thing with a web application. If you're trying to put SQL injection in a form and hit submit and going in, it's the same thing. I'm trying to put malicious activity into the front end to be processed. So how do I secure an LLM? How do I prevent a lot of this? Well, you do a web application firewall the same way you do with a web application. You put a WAF in front of it and you have it terminate looking for what are the commands that they're trying to run in this LLM. And then does that match the output? Like if I ask you about teacups, is a nuclear weapon diagram coming out of it? I mean, so the input does not match the output, and these security controls will alert on those things. So it was really fascinating how it worked because when you look at like Microsoft Copilot, it doesn't have an RBAC model. So that agent either has access to the data or doesn't. Either knows it or doesn't. It doesn't know, hey, are we having a layoff this quarter? Well, yes, HR person, we are. Here's the 15 people you were working with. And respond differently when the regular user asks that we haven't laid off. Its job is to respond as quick and fast and be as helpful as possible. That helpfulness is a security risk. So you can see where you have to tell the model who you are and what your limitations are. You're an agent. Your job is to do this and nothing else. And if anything else comes up, you need to do this. So imagine it's almost like a person that you're saying, I want you to work the front register. And if anybody gives you a fake 20, have this marker and run it over. You're working out kind of the procedure and so forth for it. So I think that's the next level is really look at LLM hacking and what you can do there.
All right, guys, you heard it here first. LLM hacking.
All right.
So you can go to my website and get the presentation if you want, and darkstack7.com/media.
So that's what I was going to ask. You're active all over the industry. So for our listeners who want to follow your work, reach out to you, see you at your next conference speak, how can they connect with you? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, if you send me cash in my mailbox, I'll call you right back immediately. But normally you go to my website, www.darkstack7.com. I have a number of my services. I have my podcast, Cybersecurity America, that's linked off of that. So on YouTube and Spotify and Apple, really would enjoy having more listeners and everybody subscribing towards it. And so that's where you can find out more. There's services there, and I can always be emailed at info@darkstack7.com. So if you need those services, look forward to connecting with you.
Perfect. And that's a wrap on this episode of Criticality Live. Huge thanks to our guest, Joshua R. Nicholson, and an even bigger thanks to all of you for hanging out with us and being part of this growing community of leaders who are done with the buzzwords and ready for real conversations. If you got value out of today's episode, hit that follow button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop us a review here on LinkedIn or on the On Demand YouTube channel. Yes, I get to tell my kids I'm on YouTube. It's great. So it helps us more than you know. So thank you for that. And of course, a big shout out to our sponsor, Secure Nation, for powering this conversation. They're helping organizations defend smarter, respond faster, and make cybersecurity something that actually works. So go check them out. And this has been Criticality Live, where we cut through the noise and get to what really matters. See you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Take care.